We have South African Paralympian Ernst van Dyk in our studio. He just won second place at the New York City Marathon. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. What is it like to race in the New York City Marathon?
Oh, it's an amazing race. I mean, a race that goes through all 5 boroughs of New York. In some of those boroughs, you know, you have people like, they don't even know there's a marathon going on. And then in other boroughs, there are a lot of excited people coming out to cheer for you. And funny things you hear when you go to the Bronx.
Yeah. What are some of the funny things you hear when you go through the Bronx?
Well, you know, some of those people, you know, the Bronx is what the Bronx is, and they'll check us out and they'll kind of go, check out the mags and our racing chairs, you know, it's like interesting area.
Jeez. How many times have you raced in the New York City Marathon?
Oh, I think it's been 10 times now.
And does it feel different every time?
Yeah, this year was especially different because, you know, there was a lot of emotion involved. Last year the race got cancelled because of Hurricane Sandy, and this year it was more a race of recovery for New York, and it was interesting. It was different. The heightened security after the Boston Marathon bombings in the race. I think they had a cop every half a block, so it was really intense, and especially the area around the finish was a bit different this time.
Yeah. You've raced in a bunch of races this year, and I know you've placed podium places in 4 of them.
Yeah.
Which races were those?
Well, basically we have 4 major marathons on the circuit now, which is Boston, London, Chicago and New York. Okay. And those are the 4 ones that I focus on. They're the best paying races, and I was fortunate to podium on all of them this year.
That's really great. That's a huge accomplishment. And tell me about training. How do you train for the races?
Well, basically, you know, I live out in Paarl, and I selected that location because of the training roads. It's very, very easy to train there. There's no hectic traffic or people to dodge. And basically, I train twice a day, and I do my thing, and I go to the gym a couple of times a week, and we have a very focused approach on the events. I basically race from January till November, so it's a very, very long season, and we have to make sure the conditioning is 100%.
And in that season, how many races do you compete in?
I do 2 sports. I do cycling and athletics. So marathons on the athletics side, I'll do 4. I'll throw in 2 10Ks just for some speed training. And then on the cycling part, I do about 6 cycling events. So it's a long event. Yeah, it's about an event every month.
Okay. And I want to talk about, I know you competed in the wheelchair division in the New York City Marathon. How do you decide when you're going to do hand cycling and wheelchair?
To me, there's a very clear distinction. There's cycling and there's athletics. And I wouldn't go, I mean, you wouldn't take your bike to an athletics event.
Right.
And I have the same principle. I won't take my hand cycle to an athletics event. So for the marathons, I use my racing wheelchair, which is part of that sport. We have a very good circuit in Europe and in America for hand cycling called the UCI World Cup circuit. And I go to those handbike races. And then we have world champs somewhere along the line. So basically, I try to keep it pure and keep it very much separated.
And when you're doing all of these races, does your family come with you?
No. I've got a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old.
Oh my gosh, they must miss you.
They miss me, and it's a bit hectic, you know, to take them with you. So, before we had kids, my wife traveled with me once or twice a year, but now with the kids and she's working, and I'm away, you know, every 1 or 2 months. So it's a bit difficult, and the 5-year-old is in school now, so it's even harder then. And
are your kids very athletic?
Well, it's a bit early to say, but I would like to think so.
Every athlete wants their kids to be athletic. I know you're a motivational speaker. What inspired you to be a motivational speaker?
Basically, you know, I always thought it was about me, and having to do good in events. And eventually, I figured out that through an interesting event, but I figured out that I have a very powerful message, and I decided that I want to talk more about it and speak to people. I don't see myself such as a motivational speaker. I think, you know, as I always start my talks, I go, I can't sell you a book or a DVD afterwards. I can share my journey with you, and I hope you can pick up 1 or 2 things in my journey that you can apply to your life and make it better.
And what's the message that you portray?
Well, basically, I have keywords that I talk about, but at the end, you know, if it's about how was I successful in my career, and I was successful and continue to be successful because I have a business-like approach. So the way you would run a business, that's the way I run myself, and I run my training and my sport.
Are you planning to go to the Rio Olympics?
Oh yes, very much.
Yes.
I think a silver medal in London was okay. I had my eye on 2 gold medals. So for some people it would be great. For me it was kind of a little bit of a failure. So for Rio, focus is again on for 2 gold medals, and I think looking at the results from this year,
Yeah.
I think I'm on a better track.
Going for the gold. Awesome. And how does the training differ when you're training for the Olympics?
That year is very difficult because the challenge we have as South Africans is we're always going to a Summer Olympics, but we're always coming from winter.
Yes.
And that is the toughest part for us. And to manage that means, I have to do a lot of training camps in Europe or in America while it's summer there,
Right.
to make sure I arrive at the Summer Olympics in summer form. Because
Yeah.
in winter we're a little bit heavier than we want to be because your body just reacts to the cold.
Right.
And we have people around us in dense populated areas that's got cold and the flu and little things like that. You pick up one here and there. If you have two kids, they bring every bug from school home. So you pick up something here and there, and that affects your training in the end. So you have to kind of get away from it, and it means sacrificing, a couple of weeks, a couple of months on training camps before the games.
Okay, and what's training camp like?
Well, training camp is, I've got a good spot in Switzerland that I go to, where it's very, very low stress, training is perfect, and I'll go there for 3 or 4 weeks before a big Paralympic Games and make sure I'm ready.
Now you've raced all over the world, you have training camp in Switzerland. What's your favorite place in the world to race?
Well, to race is tough because people are going to see this and everybody thinks their marathon is the best.
Yeah.
So I think between London, New York, Chicago and Boston, I love all of those. I've been the most successful in Boston, so I have a special relationship with Boston and I like racing there.
Very diplomatic answer. Have you trained, you obviously have trained other places in Switzerland. Do you have a favorite place to train?
No, not really. I've got this one spot in Switzerland. It's on a lake. It's a very high-tech, I think it's the Swiss Olympic Center. So it's a very high-tech facility. I mean, you walk into the room, the lights switch on, and the doors
really?
open. Yeah, it's very nice there.
Awesome.
So I love going there, and that's my favorite spot for training.